Okay, Jeremy, you about ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is a special meeting of the East Hampton Planning and Zoning Commission of October 14th, 2020. We are on a Zoom meeting or virtual meeting. The time is now 7 o'clock. What I would like to do is first thank all the commission members that are here for being here, public for helping to contribute, and also for town staff for getting everything together. We're going to seat alternates this evening. I see Tim and Michael are here. I'm going to seat both of them. Regular members, we have Jim, Roy, Roland, and Angelus. Did I miss anybody on the commission?
Kevin.
Oh, there we go, Kevin. Good evening, Kevin. And so we have, and that makes 7 of us. So the next one is approval of the minutes of the September 2nd, 2020 regular minutes. I've already spoken to Jeremy about Jim's concerns. I think they're addressed. Jim, are you satisfied with that?
I'm fine.
Okay. What I would like is a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the East Hampton Planning and Zoning Commission of September 2nd, 2020. Do I have that motion?
I'll make the motion. We approve them.
Okay, I have a motion from Jim. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Angelus. Any comments, questions, additions, or deletions?
That wasn't Angelus.
I'm sorry?
That's Roy.
It was Roy.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Roy that seconded it. Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any abstentions? Any?
I abstain. I wasn't.
Okay, Tim
Seated.
abstains. So moved.
I abstain as well because I think I missed the later half of that meeting.
Okay, and Angelus abstains also. That still passes. Communications, Jeremy.
Okay, you've got 4 things in your packet this evening for communications. A letter regarding an application to the Connecticut Siting Council from Crown Castle for the construction of a new cell phone tower on property behind Lakeview Street to replace the current tower at the top of Baker Hill. Next, you have a letter from Susan Lowe at 46, I think it is Walnut Avenue, regarding that application to the Siting Council. Third, we have a letter from Pauls and Sandys too regarding the application to the Siting Council. I'll talk a little bit about this later on, but it looks like that application is going to be moot, but I'll cover that in my planner's report at the end of the agenda. And fourth, there's a flyer regarding the 2021 Connecticut Bar Association Land Use Academy. That's the one that we typically do at Wesleyan every other year. They are going to do it. It is going to be virtual. It will be on a Saturday in March, as it normally would. Registration and further information will be coming toward you after the first of the year.
Excellent.
And that's it.
Liaison reports. I'm going to start off with Roy.
The East Hampton High School Building Committee is still holding out hope that we can have our closeout meeting in person. So everything is on hold right now, but the project's finished under budget, and a full report and details will come when we do the final closeout. We'd like to say goodbye to each other and thank each other, kind of an in-person closeout. So we're just holding off for that.
Okay. Thank you. Michael?
I was not able to attend the RPC last month, so I have nothing.
Okay. Jim?
The Zoning Board of Appeals had a meeting September the 14th, and they had 3 applications, and all of them were approved. The first one was Enrique and Brenda Diaz, 5 Pole Road, to reduce the front setback from 25 feet to 16 feet, to remove an unsafe patio and construct a 16 by 20 deck. The next application was Rocco, I guess it's Nozzolini, 59 Waterhole Road, to reduce the side setback from 25 feet to 23 feet, to construct a 17.1 by 25 addition with garage. And the last application was Spencer Killen, 15 Mark Twain Drive, to reduce the rear setback from 25 feet to 4 feet, to reduce the, to replace a 12 by 24 foot rebuilt shed. And as I said, all three were passed.
Thank you. Inland wetlands, no report tonight. Kevin?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Let's see.
Ray, nothing to report on ZBA. Not ZBA, I'm sorry.
Angelus?
Nothing to report.
Tim?
Nothing to report.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to unseat Tim since we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with Michael. Okay. And Kevin is here and seated. Okay, liaison. Okay. Any public comments that is not related to section or item 5A, B, or C? If you have anything, please state it at this time.
So what I'm going to do, Ray, a little bit different than I normally do. We have so many people in the audience this evening. What I'm going to do is ask that anybody that wants to speak at this time use the raise your hand feature, and I will unlock their microphone individually. So we'll just give it a minute. Again, use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to speak. I do have one, Dan R. Go ahead, Dan, unmute yourself and you should be able to speak.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just preparing to speak at another point of your meeting. That's all.
Oh, we'll do this again for each portion of each public hearing that's going to come up. This is just for generic comments that are not related to the public hearing.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Just because this is a Zoom meeting, it's virtual, it's a little tough to get everybody so that we can get all the comments. I'm going to open it again for public comments at the end of the meeting if anybody has something short to say at that particular point. Jeremy, could you please read the legal notice?
I can. Ray, I'm going to read two legal notices, one for last week's missed meeting or postponed meeting, and then a follow-up that we did for tonight. So this was for the October 7th meeting. The East Hampton Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a regular meeting on October 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. to consider the following. Updates to Section 3.1 Lake Pocatello Protection Zone. Application PZC 20-017 Atlantis Marketing for an amendment to the zoning regulations to amend Section 5.2 and add Section 5.2C6 gasoline or motor fuel filling stations in conjunction with a retail store in the commercial zone. Application PZC 20-018 Atlantis Marketing, 157 Main Street and 1 Colchester Avenue for a zone change from R2 to commercial. Map 07A Block 56 Lot 24 and Map 07A Block 56 Lot 22. And then we did a follow-up for tonight's meeting. Due to power outages, the East Hampton Planning and Zoning Commission a commission meeting on October 7th, 2020 was canceled or rescheduled to October 14th, 2020 at 7 p.m. to consider the following. Updates to Section 3.1 Lake Pocatello Protection Zone, application PZC 20-017 Atlantis Marketing for an amendment to the zoning regulations to amend Section 5.2 and Section 5.2C6. Gasoline or motor fuel filling stations in conjunction with a retail store in the commercial zone. Application PZC 20-018 Atlantis Marketing, 157 Main Street and 1 Colchester Avenue for a zone change from R2 to commercial. Map 07A Block 56 Lot 24 and Map 07A Block 56 Lot 22.
Thank you. We're going to move on to 5A, application PCC 20-017 Atlantis Marketing for an amendment to the zoning regulations to amend Section 5.2, add Section 5.2.C.6 gasoline or motor fuel filling station in conjunction with a retail store in the commercial zone. Just to set this up very briefly, this is a text change to our regulations. And what this would do is this is townwide for being able to have the gasoline motor filling stations in conjunction with a retail store in the commercial zone. Right now, it's in the industrial zone. We have two areas or two places right now where there are or were filling stations, and both of those are non-conforming in a commercial zone. That would be the defunct Valero station that is across from the Cobalt post office. And then the other one is the Citgo food bag, which is across the street from American Distilling on Route 66. I believe that the applicant is here. And who will be representing the applicant this evening?
I am Attorney Scott Jezik from East Haddam, and I will be representing the applicant, Atlantis Marketing Group. And are you able to hear me?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you. I have a question, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. DeCarli. Items A and B are related to one another, and the testimony and evidence that we would offer applies to both of these. Procedurally, would we be able to consider the presentation that we make this evening applicable to both of those, or are you going to expect us to essentially do this twice?
No, I would expect you to do it once, but I just need to make it clear for the purposes of what we're doing this evening for the commission members as well as for the public. The first one, which is A, is a text change to allow the gasoline motor filling stations in conjunction with a retail store in the commercial zone. The other one is a zone change. So I just want to make it clear that we're looking at two different applications, but if the presentation is applicable to both, that would be fine.
Thank you very much. So again, for the record, I am Attorney Scott Jezik from East Haddam. I represent Atlantis Marketing Group. We are here on both applications for public hearing A and B. Along with me this evening is Jack Belowich, who is the Business Development Manager for Atlantis, and I can see he's on the screen, so he will be speaking later. I don't think he can speak at the same time, but he is here. We also have David Feist from CMG Environmental. He is here tonight in lieu of Mark Smith, who was the primary engineer to date, who had a conflict in his schedule. So to reiterate, this involves property at the intersection of Route 16 and Main Street. It's the current site of what we refer to as the food bag. It's a combination convenience store and service station for fuel. This property, as the best we can determine, has existed in essentially its present condition at least as far back as the early 1970s. There may be members on your commission that have recollection earlier than that date, but that's about the best history that we can find for this property. It is right now the only fuel dispensary on Route 16 in the town of East Hampton. In addition to the property at the corner that my client owns, it also owns immediately to the north on Main Street and a second property that is also part of the overall application. That property is comprised of two multifamily residential structures, both of which are in, I would say, a poor state of repair, and a property that my client acquired a little less than, I think, about 2 years ago. So we're looking to try to accomplish two things this evening. The first, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we are looking to amend the commercial zone regulation. In the commercial zone, in the list of permitted activities by special exception, we are looking to add item 21. And the item 21 is on the screen in our statement of purpose, is to allow the use that we propose, the motor fuel filling station or gasoline station, in conjunction with retail use. And that is presently not permitted in your commercial zone, as you identified earlier, I think, and it was only permitted in the industrial zone. So the first thing we want to do is we want to change that text by adding that one line taken verbatim from the industrial and place it into the commercial. The second thing we then seek to do is we want to take the two properties that we have, which we would propose to merge together, raise the two residential structures that are located to the north of the current site, food bag, merge them together, and then make certain improvements to the food bag that we have in place. And in order to do that, we would need to change the zone in which these two properties are located, which is residential, and have that zone changed to the commercial and take benefit of the change in the text language. There might have been another way to have approached this. As the property is an existing nonconformity, we might have made application for variances, but really we feel the best way to approach this and to address a litany of concerns that might come up in the future is to make the zone change as well as the text change and allow the application hopefully to proceed as a special permit or special exception. Right now, questions concerning the particularities of the site, such as lighting, traffic control, landscaping, and other aesthetics issues like that, are really not particularly germane. They'd be more applicable and more interest at the time a special exception or your special permit application is made. But nonetheless, in a general sense, and you'll see a kind of a generic site plan that'll be put up by Mr. Feist a little bit later. It will allow us to take the existing building, move it back on the site, take advantage of the fact that we have the additional property next door. It will allow for proper and appropriate landscaping. It will allow us to have appropriate and proper lighting at the site, a more conventional traffic flow than the site enjoys now. In order to have this site retain its commercial vitality, we need to make these improvements to the property. And in order to get to that stage, it's necessary for us to, number one, make the text change, and number two, make the zone change. I might add that about a year ago, the food bag changed the fuel tanks, replaced the fuel tanks, the USTs that are at the site. So that has been done. At the time, there was noted that there was no contamination. The site is clean. We have state-of-the-art tanks that are now in the ground. Those tanks will not be changed in the event the project moves forward. So what we'd like to do first is have Mr. Feist, our engineer, review kind of a sample site plan that would work for the merged site that we have. And then afterwards, I'm going to ask Mr. Belowick from Atlantis Marketing to show you a couple of the properties that are owned by the company, to show you exactly the kind of quality work they do and give a representation of what they would propose to do at this site. So if I have the technology right, I suppose I should mute my mic and I think turn it over to Mr. Feist at this point.
Okay, before we go on any further with that, with this,
Yes.
we, as a commission, and I'm looking toward Jeremy for this, and all of this, I think we really need to keep sight of, we are looking for on this application, which is PZC 20-017, what we're looking for is specifically to have a zoning regulation changed, a text changed to allow the, and all of this is very good information. We need this information to be moving on to the next one. But for right now, what I'm looking to do is look and have a discussion with the commission, get input from the members of the public on just the text change of allowing gasoline stations in conjunction with a retail store in a commercial zone. And I would like to make sure that everything doesn't get thrown into the hopper at the same time. It is that's what we're discussing at the present time. Jeremy, that's what we really need to do first, in your opinion?
I think, Mr. Chairman, that would be fine. I think if you want to do the discussion on the text change at this time, then we can close or move on, either continue or close that hearing, and then move on and reopen for the zone change and let the presentation continue at that time. I think that'd be fine.
Okay, how does the rest of the commission feel about that? Any opinion?
There's a petition that was signed, I guess.
Okay, as far as I can see, this is now my opinion as single commissioner. What we're doing is we're looking at making existing properties more conforming with the or make the properties more conforming by a text change to our zoning regulations.
Yeah, and what I'd like to do is clarify that the petition pertains to the zone change only. So in your regulations, a petition can be signed and submitted as long as it's more than 20% of the landowners within 500 feet. That forces a 2/3 majority of the commission to approve a zone change. That does not pertain to the text change. So the petition we could talk about, and we'll discuss when we get to the zone change application portion of this.
Thank you. And
Okay,
for
I thought that there was
yeah.
some mention on the petition though that says something about the zone change, from an R22C. That's why. I raised it.
Right. Zone change. But what Ray would like to do right now is talk about the text amendment.
Okay.
Which is an amendment to our regulations, which is townwide, not site-specific.
Right. Gotcha.
Anybody on the commission have anything, any opinions, any questions?
Which
Something like-
properties, Mr. Chairman, which properties are non-conforming presently in this situation under the current zone regs?
The food bag in the center of town, food bag Sitco in the center of town, across from the American Distilling, and then the now not used Valero station across from Cobalt.
So the food bag on Route 66 is non-conforming?
It's in a commercial zone. Is that correct, Jeremy?
That is correct. It's in a commercial zone. It is non-conforming. We currently do not have any gas stations in town that conform with our regulations. The only place that the regulations allow fueling stations at present are in the industrial zone, which is the Skinner Street area down to Route 16. Other than that, they're not allowed anywhere else in town. So all of our gas stations are currently non-conforming to our current regulations.
Were they pre-existing non-conforming?
Yes. They were pre-existing, yes. They were taken out of the commercial zone somewhere, I think, prior to 1990. And I think I suspect it may have been a really more of a typographical error than anything else. But they were
taken out. The text allowing gasoline stations and commercial was removed from the regulations, or?
I'd have to research that out a little bit. I'll also say that all of these fueling stations have existed long before our zoning regulations. And,
that's what I was asking. Pre-exist. That's what I meant by pre-existing.
Yeah, all of them.
I mean, what's the greater impact from a planning perspective if we were to add this to the text for commercial properties in terms of the location of existing commercial properties? And
well, it would allow it in the commercial zones so that it makes it easier for the existing fueling stations to do any kind of reconfiguring. The reason that the text change is required right now for this application is because currently with that property being in the R2 zone and it being a non-conforming use, even if you did a zone change on the property now, they can't expand. They would not be able to add any pumps. So that would be true for the Cobalt Valero. It would be true of the food bag down in the center of town area. Not that I would imagine anything would change there drastically. Keep in mind too that fueling stations, their location must first be approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals before it even makes it to you for a special permit. So if there were a new fueling station that were to come in and let's say, let's hypothetically say, Cumberland Farms or Royal Farms or one of these things came in and said, we want to plunk down in the commercial area next to Dollar General, they'd first have to go to Zoning Board of Appeals to get a location approval before they came to you for a special permit.
So if this change is made to the text, even ongoing, it would still be by special permit?
It would still be by special permit. That's correct.
How consistent would this be with other town regulations with regard to industrial versus commercial zones and
Pretty consistent. It's pretty unusual that our commercial zones don't allow gas stations with convenience stores in the commercial areas.
Because it is a commercial enterprise.
It is.
But it's not allowed in the commercial zone.
And the way the text is being proposed, it is a fueling station in conjunction with a convenience store. So you can't have a standalone gas station without that retail use.
What about the one that's down at the, by the library? That's going to be, that's presently being opened up.
Yeah, that's in the village center. That's a pre-existing non-conforming. That would continue to be non-conforming because that is in the village center zone, not the commercial zone. And I think they're keeping it non-conform. I mean, my own perspective is that keeping that in a non-conforming situation works to our benefit because I don't know that you want 10 pumps down in the village center. I think the small sort of mom and pop look that it maintains from the 50s, I think is more appropriate down there in the center of town. That's my own personal opinion.
When we get requests like this, and I apologize for a potentially dumb question, do we consider other updates we might want to make to the section of the regulations that we're updating? Or since this came in from an application, do we only look at the application?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I didn't quite catch. What
Do
you were
we
asking.
take a fresh look when these types of changes come through application to see if there are any other changes we want to make at the time that we're updating the regulations? Or do we look at them solely from someone's requesting this via application only? Should we look, in other words, should we look at the regulations to see if there are any other changes we want to make?
I think you can, but I think in fairness to the applicant, you should probably just focus on the application itself, because once you start opening up the section, it becomes a longer process. And if the commission takes initiative, you don't have a timeline, whereas with the application, there is a timeline. So we do have to close the hearing within a certain amount of time and a decision has to be made.
So I think we're ever evolving here too, you know, so, I mean, Angeles, I think that's a great point, but at the same time, I mean, it's so hard just to think of every little thing that we could possibly put in here, and then it may work now, but 10 years down the road, it may not work. And then, you know, where are we with that? So
It's just, I mean, I think the main reason I was bringing it up is because I didn't see where in our current commercial regulations, do we allow like auto repair shops in commercial?
No, those are only in industrial.
Okay. And why is that is my question. That's why I brought it up.
No, that's a more industrial type use. Although we do have some auto repair shops in our commercial zone currently as well.
Right.
We've got a number of these non-conforming things out there. But I think that,
yeah, I mean, Route 66, you know, you were saying that it used to be industrial, right? Back in the day? Like these gas stations that are non-conforming, so.
No, it's always been
commercial. So I think
been a commercial use though.
Were industrial use, and now those zones were changed to commercial because we never had commercial back in the day, right?
The 66 area, I mean, I'd have to do some research, but the 66 area has been, you know, from Main, let's say from Main Street to Lakeview, more or less, has been in a commercial zone of some sort or another since zoning regulations came into play in '58.
Okay. So I'm just wondering how all these became non-conforming, I guess. There's so many businesses on 66 that are non-conforming.
Yeah, so getting back to this particular property, the history on this, and I know Attorney Jezik mentioned 1976, and he's right, but that was and I mentioned this in my staff report to you that went out last week. There was a site plan and zone change that was approved for this particular parcel. And we could talk about this later, but that property has been used since 1947 as a gas station. The Citgo, the food bag down on 66, has been a gas station, I think, since the late 30s. I researched that out at one point, and I believe it was the late 30s. The Valero site down in Cobalt has been a gas station since the 40s or 50s, if I recall. So these are all, you know, pre-existing non-conforming. In some cases, the commission in 1958, when they adopted the first zoning map, you know, kind of swept them into surrounding commercial zones because commercial things had sort of popped up, especially along 66. That wasn't the case everywhere. And then the commission in later years made some changes to make those uses conforming. And then some of those conforming things got pulled out of the mix. So, you know, like you said, Kevin, it's an ever evolving thing, and the pendulum swings with the times that we've gone through.
And then there's something else that historically with a lot of these different zones and with the individual businesses in the zones, everything back then had to be done by hand. So we didn't have computers where it was just push a few lines. We didn't have GIS. There was a lot of stuff we didn't have. So everything got swept, a lot of times, got swept into large groups of, okay, this is kind of all the same. Just let's leave it that way. So it wasn't a matter of they were lazy about it. It's just you don't have the manpower. And on top of that, you don't have the granularity in the maps that we do have right now. Jim Sennett, I think you wanted to say something?
Basically, there was a question about looking at other things to change for the zone changes. And every 5 years, we go through it, the whole thing, and see what we want to have changed. I think it's 5 years, right?
We try and keep to that schedule. We're required at 10, but I know we do try and keep it to 5.
Well, I don't remember. It was 5 years, or maybe it was 10, but.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it'd be in probably another 5 years, we'd be doing this, going through the whole thing.
Jim, are you referring to the POCD?
Yeah.
I have no more questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything else from the commission right now? Okay, with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to the public. Any members of the public want to speak specifically on 5A?
And again, just use the raise your hand feature and I will open your mic. I'm not going to open everybody. I've got almost 40 attendees on the call. So I know Dan Redinger wanted to speak. Dan, if you want to speak for this part of it, the text change, just do the raise your hand. Otherwise, you'll probably want to talk during the next portion. All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Okay. Members of the commission, any further comments on the text change, which is 5A right now? Comments, discussion?
Seems like we would, by making this change, we would make everything more conforming, so. Sounds like a no-brainer to me.
Okay, what I would like to do then is entertain a motion to close the public hearing portion of application PZC 20-017, Atlantis Marketing, for an amendment to the zoning regulations to amend section 5.2 and add section 5.2.6 gasoline or motor fuel filling station in conjunction with a retail store in the commercial zone.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion.
So moved, Kevin.
Okay.
Second, Roland.
What?
Second, Roland.
Seconded by Roland. Any comments or questions or discussion? All those in favor, please signify by aye.
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 Okay, any objections? Any abstentions? Okay, so moved. What I would like is a motion to a motion on this to accept application PZC-20-017 Atlantis Marketing for an amendment to the zoning regulations to amend 5.2 and add 5.2.6 gasoline or motor fuel filling station in conjunction with a retail store in the commercial zone.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Kevin.
Okay.
Second, Roland.
For the following reasons. What are the reasons?
Makes it more conducive to what we have going on in the commercial district for gas stations.
Thank you. Roland, is that all right with you?
Yeah, it makes it more conforming to our regulations. Yep. Great.
Okay. Any comments or discussions on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? So moved. Okay. Now we're going to move on to 5B, application PZC-20-018 Atlantis Marketing, 157 Main Street and 1 Colchester Avenue for a zone change from R2 to commercial, map 07A, block 56, lots 24, and map 07A, block 56, lot 22. Attorney Jessic, I know that you have already given us a presentation. We're going to include that as part of the record for 5B. Please continue with the presentation.
Okay, at this point, rather than repeat everything I said, I will ask Mr. Feist, our engineer, just to review the generic plan, if you would, that we have shown on the screen right now. And so I will turn the mic over, so to speak, to David Feist.
Good evening. My name is David Feist with CMG Environmental. I'm here. I'll go over our site plan. It's a concept plan at this point. And I'll start with down on Colchester Avenue. The existing gas station has 3 existing curb cuts. It's about an 1,800 square foot gas station. The gas tanks are located in the lower left corner, along with the existing pumps. As you can see, as was mentioned before, those existing tanks were replaced last year. They're state-of-the-art, brand new, double-walled fiberglass, and those will remain in the exact same location they are now. As part of this project, the property to the north is approximately 1.2 acres, will be combined with this lot to give us an overall about 1.6 acres of area. With that, what the applicant would like to propose would be to improve, just have 1 curb cut proposed down from Colchester Avenue to allow better flow into the site, and then have 1 exit onto Main Street, another curb cut over there for entrance and exit. With that, we'd be able to expand to approximately a 4,000 square foot gas station convenience store with retail. There would be a drive-through window for a coffee shop. And right now we're showing, I think, approximately 12 cars, and we still have ample room before we even get towards the Colchester Avenue curb cut. This layout also allows us to have 5 MPD pump islands with a canopy along the front, and also provides a much larger landscape buffer around the corner of Colchester Ave and Main Street, areas for plantings and screening along the side there. On the northern side of the property, which would abut, I believe there's some residences there, the closest point of the 5 parking spaces there is about 28 feet from the property line. So again, it leaves ample room for landscaping and screening along the perimeter. With that, or the overall site plan, we believe will conform to all the town's zoning requirements. And again, there's still some work we have to do for site plan approval and the actual site plan design, which will involve the drainage, landscaping, and lighting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, once again, just so that it is clear what we are talking about this evening. For this application, we are looking for a zone change from R2 to commercial. We request always from the applicant when something like this is coming before us to give us an idea of what they're actually looking to do and why they're looking to do it. This is a conceptual plan. This is not an approval of the site plan. So right now, that site plan is conceptual only. The matter before us is a zone change from the R2 zone to a commercial zone. Attorney Jessic, you have further?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do. I'd like Mr. Belowick to just show, we presented earlier to Mr. DeCarli a couple of other sites that we have, and I would like Mr. Belowick just to be able to comment on the 2 photos I think that he's going to show of other sites that he has. Mr. Belowick?
Yes, hi. Can everybody hear me?
You're
Can you hear-
muffled, but yes.
Okay, how about, is it better now?
A little bit.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, thank you, committee, for allowing us to be here tonight. As you know, we've been in the business for a long time. We're always looking to improve our locations. We believe that sites like the one on Colchester deserves a fresh look, a new venue for the community to take part in. This is an example of a site we built in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. As you can see, it's obviously a lot cleaner, a lot more fresher and valid for the purposes of what we look to do. And I believe it would be a total benefit to the community compared to what's existing there now. Atlantis is our name, and we offer fresh food daily. We have about 60 locations in Connecticut that we operate, most of them. And this is one that I feel will only benefit the community in comparison to what has been there for a long time and needs a much more improved look.
Thank you, Mr. Belwick. I would also mention that we should not lose sight of the fact that with whatever specific site plan is introduced, it's going to result in the present building being replaced, and the replacement structure will be located further into the interior, which is one of the reasons that the two multifamily houses that are on the property principally on Main Street are being raised. So we're going to actually go from 3 structures, and you can see those on the plan on the screen, and we will be going down to 1 single structure and with a comprehensive landscaping, lighting, and traffic plan in place. It'll also be removed a considerable distance from the street. The present site, as I think probably most of you know, it's so close to the road, it doesn't allow for any kind of responsible landscaping. It's very difficult to screen the lighting. It's difficult to control the traffic. And we feel that with a zone change, we will be allowed to enhance this site in all respects and make it a much better situation and benefit to the town of East Hampton and the community at large. We're all here this evening, Mr. Belwick, Mr. Feist, and we'd be happy to entertain any questions from the commission or the public, such as that.
I think you said this earlier, but this is a question again for this application. You put in the tanks already. Are you envisioning or planning on additional tanks?
No.
No.
Okay. Are you envisioning moving the pumps islands one way or the other?
Yes. The existing pump island will go away.
I'm sorry?
The existing pump islands will be changed to a different format as exampled in the diagram, in the service, in the site plan.
Okay. On the property that is on the screen, picture on the screen, that's on our lower right, which is a residence currently, we need, I think it's a 15-foot buffer, Jeremy. I'm not positive on that. 15-foot buffer going around between commercial and residential. Is that the case?
That is correct. And if the properties are owned by the same owner, the way the regulations are written, that 15-foot buffer could go on either the proposed gas station property or the residential property, since they're under the same ownership.
Okay, thank you.
So it's clear, Atlantis Marketing owns that property that has the residence shown in the lower right corner.
Okay.
The existing property is how many square feet, and the new expanded property is how many square feet?
Mr. Chairman, this is David Feist with CMG.
Yes.
Based on the survey, the existing gas station property is about 15,182 square feet or 0.35 acres. The 157 Main Street property to the north with the 2 houses is 51,981 square feet or 1.2 plus or minus acres.
So you're going to be triple the more than tripling the size of that property from 15,000 to 65,000 approximately.
The acreage, yes. It's not the size of the structures.
No, I understand. I'm talking about the footprint of the property. So the existing footprint is 15,000 and you're adding another 51,000 feet to the 15,000 to bring up about a 66,000 square foot footprint for the entire site. Is that correct?
I don't know what, I'll be candid, I don't know what you mean by footprint. I would normally take that as the building coverage. It will be the entire site will be the size that you just mentioned. Maybe we may be saying the same thing, but with the entire site, that'll be about 1.6 acres.
I was referring to the site, not the building.
Okay, 1.6 acres, then that is all correct.
Again, this is just my understanding. This is a conceptual plan, so I just assumed we were referring to the site.
Okay, further questions from the commission? Comments?
Yes, to Jeremy, this is Roland. Would this go before the design review board for comments to us?
You're muted, Jeremy.
Yes, thank you, Roy. I didn't even realize that. Yes, it will go in front of Design Review Board once a special permit and site plan application are submitted.
Thank you very much.
Again, I think they were just trying to give us a visual of what they were thinking of doing, not necessarily exactly what they're going to do, but I think this is their vision, if you will.
I understand that, but I wanted to make sure that they understood that this commission takes input from the design review board, and that wouldn't be a surprise on their part when they're going to design the new building that they're proposing on this site.
I hear you, man.
And I'd like to just clarify my statement. I said when an application is submitted, but I want to just clarify that the zone change would have to be approved first before an application came to the commission and went to design review board. So I just want to clarify my statements there.
Thank you. And to be completely clear, right now, nothing's happening. This is talking about a commercial zone, a change to a commercial zone. Also, Jeremy, in the staff notes, you had given us some notes about this particular property. This was originally, and I don't really know what exactly the AA-3 in the pre-76 zoning regulations were, but this was changed to a commercial, I'm sorry, it was termed neighborhood commercial, and then it stayed in that neighborhood commercial zone, or the CN zone, until 1990. And then when the zoning map and regulations were updated, it ended up getting swept into the new R2 zone.
That's correct. It was, and I'll clarify too. I'm going to use what I've got on the screen here. That's for the 1 Colchester Avenue property. So the property where the food bag store currently is and the gas pumps, that property was used as a gas station starting in 1947. In 1958, when the zoning regulations were adopted and the map was first adopted, it was in the AA3 zone. It was included in that AA3 zone, which was a residential zone, similar to what we call the R2 now. And then in 1976, the existing building, the new food bag, and then new food bag and the 2 pumps, a site plan application was submitted, site plan special permit was submitted to the commission along with a zone change. The zone change was approved from AA3 to neighborhood commercial. That was in 1976. The property was then, the original structure that was there was demolished. The current building was built, and it was in that it was in the neighborhood commercial zone until 1990.
Got it.
I think that's an important clarification too, because I, as an individual member, would prefer to see the existing property utilized, not, you know, whether that would require variances or not to allow the expansion of the gas station or reconstruction of the gas station. I personally take concern with the encroachment of commercial onto residential in a heavily dense residential neighborhood. Would variances be allowed, Jeremy, if the application was amended to change the zoning of the existing property to commercial, the existing food bag?
So
would variances be allowed to allow the expansion of whatever is the existing non-conforming use? It would no longer be non-conforming, right?
potentially. I think the issue is it's so constrained. It's such a tiny little lot that to do any kind of extension there is going to be almost infeasible on the existing property. Could variances be approved? You could certainly make the argument that they should be, or they could be, but I think there are some physical constraints to the property that would make it almost infeasible for them to do that.
Well, the other thing I look at with this particular piece of property is driving by it every day, because down in Wapawak, there are a lot of times, because there's increased traffic, there's increased housing up and down 16. A lot of times there are backups of traffic that are on the road on 16 waiting to queue up to get in. And things do change. And from that particular safety viewpoint, just for myself, I'm looking at it and thinking, yeah, if we increase the size of what is the commercial use, we can get a whole bunch of those cars off the street.
Not necessarily when you add a drive-through.
Well, that comes under the site plan, and I would tend to agree with you at that point, yes.
Or heavier traffic in general, because it's a bigger gas station, so more people might go there. A lot of people might avoid the existing gas station because of the nuances that you described. I'm speaking as an individual commissioner. I am concerned. I think based on other instances where this has occurred in town, the encroachment of commercial onto residential and heavily residential areas, there's no other commercial properties around this property or adjacent to it. I think that it's just concerning from that perspective. I'd love to see a better gas station there. Just my concern is the location.
Mr. Chairman, may I just address that particular point that the commissioner raised?
Yes, please.
The other property owned by Atlantis Marketing that shows in the lower right that was not incorporated into the plan, that was acquired, right, correct, that's being marked. That was acquired even prior to the property to the north, with the expectation that the expansion, if we had reached that stage, would have taken place with the merger of those two properties. However, it became increasingly evident that because of the setback requirements on Route 16, that would be very, very difficult to accomplish. Then when the property to the rear, to the north, where the two houses are that will be raised, became available, my client purchased those because they made the potential for the renovation of this site much more practical. It added a significant amount of additional acreage, over 1.2 acres, and it allows for the design that we're hoping to ultimately be able to submit. So we did look at trying to do and keep it entirely on 16. It's just that everything is so tight and the regulations are now so burdensome with respect to the setbacks and the landscaping requirements. It just wasn't enough space. With this other property, we now have enough space to achieve some of those goals.
I would tend to agree with you, Angelus, about the zone creep. I know we've looked at this South Main Street over the years for different reasons, and always chose to keep the residential, and it just this seems like it's more zone commercial creeping into the residential zone.
Yeah, I mean, corporations can buy up residential properties around, commercial properties they own. That's fine, but I don't know if that necessarily means that it's appropriate for the location or, something that the town necessarily needs. I mean, take into consideration also that we have a gas station opening up soon right down the street that's been shut down for the past at least 15 years, I think. So the need for a larger gas station in town, I mean, is there really a need for it?
Well, the other thing that we have to be careful of is we cannot by statute do a business case on this. If someone wants to open up another pizza parlor or...
Well, let me rephrase that. Is it supported by the current plan of conservation and development? I don't think it is.
Well, I know that there's something that's come in. I had a very brief discussion with Jeremy about that particular item that came in. And I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that, Jeremy, but I think we need to also take a look at that and hear from the public at the same time.
Mr. Chairman, I know those two pieces of property. The one that is going to be left there is only occupied by tenants in the lower floor. The upper floors are vacant. The house that they're going to be tearing down for a long time had a tarp on its roof. It was under poor upkeep, and to actually help the neighborhood by removing that house. In the past, there had been a lot of tenants in there that were not desirable type people. Now, that's not for us to say, but that was the facts. So under our watch, we get a chance to remove something that is really in bad shape. We have a chance to increase and serve the community with a better building, not really over encroach the residential area, but improve the commercial foothold in that area. And not necessarily, it's always going to come to our discretion to increase that or decrease it. But in this case, the benefits outweigh the chances of ruining the residential area that exists. In my opinion, it's going to actually help the residential area because it's going to be more maintained, clean, it's going to be cleaned up, and it's going to be maintained by the Atlantis group. So though I agree with what Roy and other commission members say, I think in this case, the benefits outweigh what could possibly happen in the neighborhood. Thank you for that opportunity.
How is this supported by the plan of conservation and development? We haven't identified this area or these properties as, a potential need for this type of enterprise or commercial activity. How is this supported by the POCD?
Jeremy, have you had a chance to look at that? I know that's an outstanding issue.
Yeah, I've done some initial looking at that, and I'd like an opportunity, if we can, to get a better chance to do a deeper dive on it. There's a number of different pieces of the conservation and development plan that you can look at, either to support or not support the application. I know that the future land use map had this area down as a kind of a mixed use zone, sort of in line with our POR zone. It didn't call out the zone as a potential POR, but it did specify some kind of commercial, ground floor commercial sort of home-based occupation type thing. And I'd have to look at that again. The other thing that that the plan of conservation and development does is it suggests that we should be allowing modest expansion of our commercial zones where appropriate. So that would be up to the commission to determine whether or not it is appropriate to allow a modest expansion near an existing facility. It also mentions that we should be growing businesses from within. And I know, of course, that Atlantis is a group that's not owned by anybody in town. It's not owned in town, but this is an existing business that is looking to expand and would provide some opportunity. That all being said, I know that there's been some documents that have been submitted from some of the public. And I'd like to just take a chance to take a deeper dive in our POCD. I haven't had an opportunity to do that before tonight's meeting, just, to kind of take a look at what's been submitted and give you my opinion on that.
And another positive thing that may come out of this is that we increase the traffic in the village center. Just another twist on it.
And that's always been the argument for doing something with Main Street, is to try and drive some traffic towards the village center. The other thing that I will note, and take this as you will, the property that's known as 157 or 159 Main Street, the one with the two multifamily residentials, that is also very non-conforming for the R2 zone. It is residential in nature, which is what the R2 zone is residential. However, the R2, if you remember, is the most exclusive residential zone that we have. It is a single family zone. We do not allow accessory dwelling units. We don't allow duplexes. It's the only one that we don't allow any of those. And one of these structures is a 3-family and the other one's a 2-family. So, take that as you will, but it is a something that needs to be noted.
To the point made that it's going to be an improvement to the neighborhood, I'd like to hear from the neighbors that are actually going to live there and get some input from, do they think and want this improvement in their neighborhood?
Yeah, and to the point that it will increase traffic to the center, keep in mind that we have a gas station opening up right in the town center, and this could potentially take away from.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Michael.
Yes, so I tend to agree more with Angelus in his assessment here. Although I consider the expansion of the commercial center onto the Colchester Avenue property to be appropriate. However, I made similar comments regarding the commercial rezoning at the north end of Main Street, that our Main Street is a national treasure, and our plan of conservation development really encourages preservation and only incremental development in the village center and the surrounding roads. So I would be very cautious about extending the commercial zone onto Main Street. I'd be more in favor of a POR or maybe a village zone in this area.
Okay, thank you.
This is really just making the gas station a little bit bigger. I don't foresee it. Yes, it's going on to the other property, but I don't know. I don't see it as a huge deal, a huge infestation onto our village center, or have any impact on Main Street as it is, because it's already a gas station. So it's not like, we're going from a residential house to a gas station. It's already an existing gas station.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with expanding the gas station, especially onto the Colchester Avenue property, and maybe taking a little bit of the property to the north, but I wouldn't favor expanding the commercial into 157 Main Street.
Well, I think with all of our comments, can we just hear from the public now and then digest what they're saying, what their views are on this?
I think that's a great segue. Jeremy, if you could, you are in control right now. What I would like to do is first just give the short version of why we have public hearings. We have public hearings to help us, the commission, make better decisions and to bring to our attention issues that we may not have considered or we don't know about. Toward that end, I would ask the public to please, first thing is, this is a legal proceeding. Be respectful of the commission, the applicant, anybody, other members of the public. Second thing is, please keep your comments short. long and rambling doesn't help us. Short to the point that we can understand and digest helps us a lot. On top of which, we are on a virtual meeting right now, and these make it difficult because a lot of times all we get is a disembodied voice, and the audio is not great on a lot of it. So if you could speak clearly, concisely, we would appreciate it a great deal. Jeremy.
As I said before, what I'd like you to do, if you'd like to speak, is use the raise your hand feature. I'm not going to go through and unmute everybody that's on the call. I've got almost 40 participants here tonight. So if you'd like to speak with regard to this application, use the raise your hand feature, and I will open up your mic. So I do have one hand up. That's Dan Redinger. I'm going to unlock you, Dan, and you can unmute yourself and go ahead and speak.
Okay.
And just before he speaks, yeah, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Kevin.
Sure. My name is Dan Riedinger. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
I own property at 2 South Main Street, directly across the street from the current Food Bag Citgo gas station. And I think I did a pretty good job fixing up the house that was there before I purchased it. I don't know if you're familiar with the area or not, but the only commercial property within any kind of distance is the Food Bag, and I contend that the EMS station is another one, but that neither here nor there. I am in opposition to this because I believe it's going to increase traffic more than decrease traffic. Most of the traffic that flows along Route 16 that gets off to get gas or food continues on that road. It is only, I hate to tell everybody, local people that are making that turn down Main Street to go either home or wherever else they're going. It's not people that are moving along Route 16 and say, oh, let's go visit downtown East Hampton. So I beg to differ because I watch the traffic, I see the traffic, I hear the traffic, and I think we're making it less conducive to a residential zone that it currently is. I'll stop there for now.
Dan, you had sent me a photograph. Do you want me to throw that up on the screen while
Sure.
you've got? Okay, just give me one moment here. This was something that Dan wanted entered into the record. I'm going to pull it up. Okay, everybody see that?
Basically, it was a picture I took this afternoon of the front yard at my property where I'm about, I'm going to say 200 feet away from the Citgo gas station. The brown roof to the right is the Food Bag building, and I appreciate the fact that the current Food Bag closes at a reasonable time. Otherwise, I would have so much light infiltration onto my property and in my house that it would be difficult to even sleep. That's it. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
When we do a site plan, we typically, well, most definitely, we always take into consideration the lighting. So that is one of our little pet peeves because we're conscientious of the neighbors, and so just to let you know on that, in that respect.
Yeah, we are.
Also take into consider hours of operation, right, Kevin?
Yes.
Yeah, we are very adamant about where the light cutoff is, and with the latest light fixtures, they're very good at cutting light off that it doesn't spill into other places. So regardless of what happens, any site plan modification of a lighting plan is always, we always ask for it. But Jeremy, go ahead.
Okay, we've got 3 more hands. I'm just going to go right down the list here. Ryan Gora, I've opened your mic. Just unmute yourself and you can speak.
Hi, I'm Ryan Gora. I live at 3 Desire Drive. The street looks like south of the food bag. I am against the expansion. We recently moved into town. You know, I knew that the food bag was obviously there, operational. But at the current time, I think that it's just only going to be a detriment to the residential area. I'm, like I said, just not really for any expansion. If they want to do some sort of improvements to the existing property, whatever it may be, you know, that's their business. But, you know, I think encroaching on, you know, Main Street is going to be a detriment to the area.
Jeremy, could you point where he lives on the map?
I think you're muted, Jeremy.
Sorry, I'm managing a couple of screens here. Ryan, you said you're at number 3, correct? So I think that would be this one corner.
Yep, I'm at 3. I'm actually the second one in.
Second one in, this one
Yep.
here. Okay.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Jeremy?
Okay. Let me just get to the next one here. We're going to go to Bob Atherton now. So Bob, just unmute yourself and you can speak.
Hi, this is actually Bob's wife, Donna Daly Atherton. We live at 119 Main Street. And I understand, you know, the people who have spoken who are concerned about the encroachment. My concern is if the gas station is able to move back and farther up onto Main Street, I think that would alleviate the traffic pattern. Because right now, if I'm coming on 16 and going to turn right onto Main Street, I can't even tell you how often there's almost an accident because someone's pulling out and not looking. It's too close to the corner. So I would be in favor of the change so that they could move, possibly move that exit and entrance farther up to Main Street.
This is Bob Atherton, so we're sharing the mic here. And I have a question, and that is the residents at 155 Main Street part of this expansion? Is that going to be torn down or left, even though it looks like from the map that it is on in the property of the existing gas station? Is that true?
So let me just point to what those structures are. This is 155. This is 157, and this is 159. So it's 157 and there's 3 multifamilies in a row right there. It's the 2 most southern ones. It's the brick one directly behind the gas station, and then the gray clapboard one next to it.
All right, so it's the gray clapboard one I'm interested in. I had the number wrong.
Okay, yes, the gray clapboard one would be coming down as would the brick one to the right of it, but not the one to the left, if you're looking for me.
Okay. All right, that's a personal concern on my part for the family that lives there, but as long as I know that. And my other question is, and it's more of a design question, so this may not be the right time, but while I got their ear, is Atlantis giving any consideration to putting in an electric vehicle charging station there?
Jack, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, well, at this point, I mean, obviously, we'd like to consider doing that. I don't know if it's going to be in the final plan or the design plan, but it is something that is obviously up and coming and needs to be considered in this design plan.
But they are together.
Okay. Thank you.
And just a note on that, just watching the regulations as they're coming down the road from the state. And Jeremy can chime in on this one too. It looks like that one's going to be needing charging stations. That one's going to be legislated into existence. So for the entire state of Connecticut. So that's a much larger question, but it's coming regardless.
I think you're right. Okay, moving down the list, Jennifer M. I'm unmuting you, so unmute yourself and go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm Jennifer Mikulski, 100 Daily Road. I wasn't intending on speaking on this item. I'm here for another. But I just wanted to give my comments after seeing this presentation with concerns. One main concern is what is seemingly a never-ending request to change zoning. When you start changing zoning from residential to commercial, when does it end? It just, from my experience, it just seems to just continue to grow to the neighboring property and beyond. So that's my comment on that specifically. Separately, I do see a potential issue if this were to move forward with traffic exiting from the proposed plan and heading towards the stoplight. I don't feel like there's enough road to accommodate, I think traffic is going to back up somewhere and probably in the parking area of the gas station if it were to expand. Because even as it exists now, exiting and turning left out of that gas station and getting stuck at the light, I think you might be able to get 3-4 cars before you can't leave that parking lot. And my last point, the new gas station in the village center, which I think, it is to, I think what Jeremy called it, like a little mom and pop looking gas station, which has been beautifully redone on the outside. I think this will ultimately negatively impact the future of that. And those are my points. And that's all I needed to say.
Thank you.
Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong. We have to, well, if it ever comes to fruition where we do look at the site plan, traffic is determined by the DOT and it cannot be a part of our application, correct? We have to approve it first and then it goes to the traffic study group. Is that correct?
Sort of. So you can ask for a traffic study, but the curb cut change on the 16 side would go to the state after your approval. But as part of the application, you can certainly ask for a traffic study.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
That would be under the site plan, though.
Right. At the end of the site plan is when it would go to DOT. 3 more hands. Ryan, I'm going to butcher your last name. I apologize. Ryan Bothamley. I'm going to allow you to speak. So just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you, Jeremy. Yes, Ryan Bothamley. I live at 141 Main Street. I'm here with my wife, Heidi Bothamley, and we are both opposed to the zoning change. We moved to East Hampton about 16 years ago. We're raising a family. We're both teachers. We chose East Hampton to move because of the character. And I'm asking the zoning commission to please uphold your promise to within the conservation and development plan of preserving the small town character of East Hampton and protecting the community character and enhancing the quality of life for the current and future residents. This gas station is going to look a lot like the Cumberland Farms that's on 66 in Portland with 5 pumps. It's going to be a very big gas station. It's not going to take a DOT study, a traffic study, to determine that this is going to increase traffic substantially. The drive-through circling around exits onto Main Street, and I can just see it now. It's going to increase traffic. It's pretty obvious to me. So I'm concerned about my property values and the quality of life with the increased traffic. I just want to go down for the record that I'm against the zoning change, and I appreciate you holding this hearing.
Thank you. That was 141 Main Street? Okay.
Yes, 141.
Okay.
As each one of these applicants give their address. If they're in the circle, could you point them out to us, Jeremy? So we
Sure,
see them.
I can do that. Yep. Okay, next, Rich Roberts, your hand is up. I've unmuted you. Unmute yourself and go ahead and talk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
go ahead,
yes.
sir.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Jeremy. My name is Rich Roberts. I'm an attorney at Haller and Sage in Hartford, and we are representing Kenneth Dodson, who resides at 148 Main Street. Given the conversations that have been going on to this point, I'm not going to belabor the points that are contained in the memorandum that we submitted regarding the plan of conservation and development that should be in your packet, but I'll just hit some of the highlights. First, as has been discussed in the testimony this evening, this is a non-conforming site. It's in a residential zone, and based on what Jeremy's been researching, it sounds like it's been residentially zoned for probably 65 of the last 80 years. The last 30 years, consciously, by the decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission, it's been included in a residential zone. When you're contemplating making a zone change, under the statute, you're obligated to look at your plan of conservation and development and identify on the record what is in the POCD and provide that the proposed map change is consistent with that plan. If you look at the site in question, the POCD from 2016 specifically identifies that it should be changed to either remain residential or be zoned to allow residential and professional offices. Nowhere does it indicate that it should be a standalone commercial zone, 500 to 1,000 feet away from any other commercial zone located in the middle of what is otherwise a residential district. There's a blow up of the future land use plan specifically showing this property in the materials that we provided. As was discussed earlier, the POCD also says at page 65 that any expansions of the commercial or industrial development areas should be done consistent with the future land use plan. Again, this is not consistent with that. One of the other things that may be overlooked here, and it's kind of amusing or coincidental that one of the last questions was about an electric charging station. There is a possibility that the future of gas stations may not be infinite into the future. And one of the things that I think the commission needs to bear in mind if it approves this zone change is that it isn't specific to a food bag. You would permit any one of the 8 specific as of right uses to be put into this property. And then there are 18 or 20 special permit uses within the commercial zone that all could be put onto this property, none of which are compatible with the residential neighborhood, and none of them are consistent with the plan of conservation and development. There are other provisions of the POCD that we've alluded to in our materials that further indicate that this is not an appropriate zone change. We did submit the protest petition signed by the owners of more than 20% of the property within 500 feet of the proposed zone change. The effect of that is that it would require the affirmative vote of 5 members of the commission to approve it. And again, we don't believe it's even remotely consistent with the plan of conservation and development. Non-conforming uses by long-standing zoning law are supposed to be amortized out of existence, not expanded or intensified. And this is one that should not be expanded into more of a residential zone. One last comment, and this is something that either the applicant or Jeremy may want to address at some other point, is that the property at 157 Main Street is identified as owned by AMG Real Estate LLC. In the land records, the deed to AMG Real Estate LLC identifies it as a Connecticut Limited Liability Company. In the Secretary of State's records, there is no such entity, and that entity, as the owner of the property, is not a party to the application as the owner. So the application itself might not comply with your requirements because it doesn't include the owner of 157 Main Street. And with that, I will thank you for your indulgence and stop.
Jeremy, did you look into the related party issue there?
I will. We'll take a look at that, and I'll speak with Attorney Jezik about it.
Thank you, Attorney Roberts. Jeremy, next.
Okay, next. Just give me 1 second here. Irene Cuck, I assume. I'm going to allow you to speak and just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, thank you. This is Stuart Winquist. My wife is Irene Cook. I live at 11 South Main Street. I am just beyond the 500-foot circle. So I am actually in view of the current food bag. And I thank the commission for the opportunity to speak. The town has implemented a planning process and designated the current zone and zoning regulations to provide for thoughtful growth and to protect everyone's interests, business owners and residents in the town who've supported this town with taxes and other contributions to this community. Spot zone changes do not reflect this transparent and equitable process that established these zoning regulations. Residents in our neighborhood purchased their homes here and invested in their homes here with the understanding that as the town grew, it would be under the structure embedded in the zoning regulations. Businesses in general rely on stability and transparency to ensure fair competition, which would apply to the gas station at the center of town, at the center of the old village. Businesses in our town have made investments knowing what is allowable in this market. And what's allowable in this market is determined by the zoning regulations, the current zoning regulations. So this spot change zoning from residential to commercial meets none of the established criteria for establishing zoning. This town has commercial zoning that stretches nearly the full length of 66 in our town. Expanding this zone is not only unnecessary, it is disruptive to this residential neighborhood and would result in a taking of value from a large number of current owners in this town, which we have built up over the years, and reallocating that value to a single entity who's asking for this spot zone change. It is not necessary to have more gasoline capacity in this town. A few years ago, when we built our new high school, we had to shrink the square footage of the school based on the projected growth of this town. Fuel efficiency of vehicles are under a big transformation. I drive the same size SUV that I drove a year ago, and it gets 40 miles per gallon versus 20 miles per gallon that I used to get. We don't need additional capacity in this town for gasoline. I'm very concerned about, as a neighbor, I'm very concerned about the additional traffic, the additional light pollution, noise pollution, air pollution from idling cars that this expansion will bring to our residential neighborhood. We also frequently pick up trash along our sidewalks, and this will get much worse as we expand this gas station. This expansion does not belong in this residential neighborhood. And I would like to address two comments made by members of the commission. First, I've lived here for 30 years, and like I said, my house is in view of the food bag. I honestly have not ever seen cars backed up onto 16. When the gas station is busy, people pull off and then they kind of shuffle around as other people pull out and back up and move out. But I've never seen people back up, traffic backed up on Route 16. I honestly just have never seen it. As far as the condition of the rental properties, there have been a lot of properties that have been in disrepair over the years. Actually, the two properties on the corner of 16 and South Main Street were in horrible repair. They were rental properties. Both of them over the last, few years or several years have been remodeled. And actually the gentleman who has the property directly across, that's a historic home. It was in horrible shape. And the guy did a fantastic job. If you put a commercial gas station right there, I can tell you that a lot of the other properties around are going to lose their value. People are going to just turn them into rental properties that are not going to get fixed up. So I don't think that's a good argument for changing the zone. I walk my dog at night, usually when I have time, like 10 o'clock at night, from my house down Main Street. And I don't want to be walking my dog through a commercial zone that's all lit up. That's not why I moved to East Hampton. I could have moved to Cromwell to do that, or the Berlin Turnpike or something. So with that, I yield my time and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Jeremy, anybody else?
So those are all the hands we have raised. I just want to take a quick peek because I did get a few comments in emails. They did make their way to you, but I just want to make sure that we're not missing anybody. I think most of those folks, we do have an opposition letter from David Mandigo. I don't think he spoke tonight, so I just want to pull that up real quickly and we'll read it into the record. This was sent to Christine a couple of weeks ago. Hello, Christine. Let me start by saying I am the property owner at 12 Desiac. After looking at it, he's actually at 7, so that's just a typo. My property backs up to the two properties along Main Street. I have some comments and concerns regarding the zone change. Will a study be made to see how this change, hence the store gas station by Atlantis, will impact surrounding property values? I plan to retire and sell this property within the next several years and do not want this change if the present value is reduced as a result. In the past, we've had trouble with individuals crossing the property as a shortcut to get food back. If the request is passed, then I want a fence put in place along the back of the property. It may not seem like much to me. It may not seem like much, but there is a line of large stones between the two properties at present. These were moved there by the previous owner of the Main Street property, not me. Atlantis needs to either remove these or make sure they're on the food bag side of a fence. Atlantis needs to know that looking out my kitchen and or dining room windows should present a pleasant view of my backyard, not a sloppy, noisy, or smelly business. Best regards, Dave Mandigo. So that's one of them. I know that we had one. That document was from Ken Dodson, and Rich Roberts spoke on his behalf. So we have that in. I'm not going to rehash it here. Rich hit the highlights of it. Protest signatures, we do have. That's the protest that we received, and then spot zoning change at 157. I think that was from Irene, which Stuart just spoke about. So I'm not gonna go through that, but it is into the record. Okay, so we're good.
Thank you. Any further comments from the committee?
You know what? I do have one more hand that came up. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Marion, go ahead. Just unmute yourself and go ahead and speak.
This is actually, Marion's my wife. I'm Ken Dodson. I live at 148 Main. I've lived on Main Street for 40 years. Prior to that, my grandparents lived in the house. So I've seen the heyday of Main Street. I've seen it decline, and I've seen it come back. People are still moving to Main Street, young couples with families. And they're moving there because they have that small town feel, the Main Street look. You know, your mail gets delivered through slots in your door. There's no mailboxes there. You have this sense of neighborhood and community. And in developing the plan of conservation and development for East Hampton, you know, the residents repeatedly expressed their desire to have that in this town. And the POCD reflects that community desire by keeping Main Street residential. People have invested heavily in their homes, and they continue to do that because of the town plan is to keep Main Street Main Street. So, you know, I'm pleading with you to don't destroy Main Street by changing the zoning to commercial. I'm in total opposition to it. And it doesn't matter if it's food bag or Dollar General. It's not in the plan, and it will be the end of that neighborhood. So please keep Main Street residential. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, any further comments from the commission members? Okay, what I would like is
I have a question. If we were to postpone, which I'm assuming we're going to do anyways, would they be able to modify the application to, instead of expanding down Main Street per Michael's comments, that little triangular cutout, which just seems irregular to me, instead incorporate that for the zone change?
The application can be modified so long as the public hearing remains open.
It doesn't impact notification requirements because it's the same abutting properties?
Same abutting properties, and the hearing is continued to be open. Once the hearing closes, no modifications can come in and no more comments from anybody other than staff and commission.
I just want to echo what Michael said. Only is it on the Route 16 side, but it's also a more modest, which I've heard said several times. It's smaller than or comparable in size to the existing food bag property, not much larger as is being proposed here. And also it already currently abuts the property that it would be expanded against. So I feel like I would be more inclined to be in support of the project if it incorporated that property and not the Main Street properties or property. As a single commissioner. I don't know how others feel about that, but.
No, that's why we're having a discussion, to have different opinions.
I mean, you're not going to get the magnitude of a gas station that you have there, but you can probably get, and probably not a drive-through, but you'll get a bigger retail store and maybe an additional pump.
Okay. Considering we do have a lot to keep going on this particular, on the agenda tonight, what I was hoping to have is a motion to continue the public hearing to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is November, what, Jeremy?
I think it's the 4th.
Okay, well, anyway, to our next regularly scheduled meeting.
So move, Mr. Chairman, Kevin.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Roy.
Okay, Roy has seconded it. The reason I keep saying the names is so that when Christine tries to do our minutes, she knows who's who, and not try and identify just the voice.
It is the 4th.
It is, yes.
4th.
It is the 4th.
Okay, great. To November 4th. We have a motion on the floor and second. Any comments or discussion?
Yes, just a quick clarification. Are we rezoning all 3 properties or just the 2 that are highlighted in the image here?
As the application currently is just the 2 properties.
Okay.
It can be modified, but it's just the 2 properties at the present time. I have a motion on the floor and seconded to continue the public hearing.
I have one question, if you could. On the petition, how many people signed the petition that were against it?
It was more than 20% of the landowners. I'd have to do a quick count, which I don't have the number in front of me. I can do that if you want to give me a moment to do it.
Or if you want to just get it for next meeting, it doesn't matter. Because we're going to push it off anyways, supposedly.
Looks like 18 different people.
Okay.
19, 20, 21. Yeah, it's about 25 or 26. Some of them are 2 owners on properties. So I'll give you a count at the next meeting.
Okay.
Of how many properties are represented versus how many people, how many individuals have signed.
I have a motion on the floor and seconded to continue the public hearing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. I would like to entertain a motion to continue the application PZC-20-018 Atlantis Marketing, 157 Main and 1 Colchester Avenue for a zone change from R2 to commercial, map 07A, block 56, lot 24, and map 07A, block 56, lot 22, to our next regularly scheduled meeting of November 4th, 2020. Do I have someone who will
So
make?
moved, Mr. Chairman. Kevin.
Kevin has made a motion to continue the application. Do I have a second?
Second, Roy.
I have a second. Any comments or discussion on this on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So moved. Okay. 5C, the updates to the Section 3.1 Lake Pokety Park Protection Zone. We do have this. We've discussed this for a while. This has been going on for many months. We've taken into consideration all the comments through the workshops, as well as in when we have asked for public comment on this. So what I'd like to do tonight is just open that up. Jeremy, if you could just give us literally a 2 to 3 sentence summary of what we're doing.
Sure. So Section 3.1 is the Lake Pokety Protection Zone. Just as a reminder to you all, this is a major update to that regulation that would be in effect for the entire watershed. The goals here are to minimize runoff from each individual property, protect the wetland areas through enhanced zoning regulations, enhanced buffers along streams, tributaries, and the lake itself, increasing pervious surfaces on properties, decreasing impervious surfaces, preserve vegetative buffers, native plantings, minimize disturbance of natural grades, things of that nature. I think one of the biggest changes is sorry, my update wants to happen here. One of the biggest changes is a stopping of issuing certain permits during a certain part of the year to minimize runoff during the rainy season. So that's the brief update.
Thank you. We have gone over this a lot. What I would like to do is get any comments from the commission members and then open up the public hearing. Any comments from the commission?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that, you know, we should, there's certain paragraphs within this document that have been discussed at all 3 meetings with regard to, I think, requirements under number D there. So there's a couple paragraphs, although I'm in favor of most of this, I think that there's just a couple paragraphs that we're still, that we need to revisit. But, you know, I understand that we want to move this along too, but so if those couple paragraphs can be removed that we discussed heavily, that are reflected in our minutes, I would entertain something to, you know, some type of motion to move this along.
Thank you. Anybody else from the commission? With that, I'd like to open it up to the public. Does the public have, anybody in the public have anything that they would like to contribute to this section 3.1 Lake Pokety Park Protection Zone?
All right, I've got one hand up just as a reminder to everybody else. Use the raise your hand feature and I'll recognize you and I'll allow you to talk. So I've got Bob, SLP. I assume that's Bob Yankner. Go ahead, Bob. Just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you, Jeremy. How'd you know it was me?
Oh, I'm good at guessing these things.
Jeremy, it's Bob Yankner. I'm on Spellman Point. I'm the point person for the Save Lake Poketapog Coalition of the 800 homeowners that live in the watershed area around the lake. I'm pleased that the commission has taken this, has brought this back to the fore. I'm not happy that we're not happy. The Save Lake Poketapog Coalition is not happy that we've been delayed because of the pandemic. A lot of things have been delayed because of the pandemic. This I understand, but I'm also pleased that the commission has undertaken to get this thing moving and go on again. Thank you very much, Kevin. I would ask that the Save Lake Poketapog Coalition have some input into this thing. I believe we did when it first came out, Jeremy. We did have a number of discussions about it. I would like to get refreshed with the latest plans for the 3.1. Kevin referred to a number of changes in a couple of paragraphs. I'd like to be able to have myself and a couple other people from Save Lake Pocatapog just review what the current status is, and then possibly have some input into the final plan. That way you'll have a good representation of the homeowners around the lake. What we understand so far is whatever we left off with way back when, and I'm not sure when that was, last spring, the Save Lake Pocatapog Coalition had reviewed it, and we were very pleased with what we saw there. So essentially, we support you guys 100% of this thing. We'd like to make sure that it does in fact make sense for what we're looking for, and it merges with or applies to the goals that the Save Lake Pocatapog Coalition is espousing for 2021.
Thank you for your comments. I would like to point out we've had 3 workshops, numerous discussions on this. We welcome all the comments. We welcome discussion on it, but we would really appreciate anything that you might have to say or change. Please put it in writing, because we've gone over this now a number of times. We really want to get this thing into our regulations so that we can use them as a guide and also for enforcement for this. So we really need those. We needed them before now, but we need them now.
Yeah. And I'll add, Mr. Chairman, that nothing has been changed in this document since those workshops.
Okay. What I would like to do then is there somebody else?
That's the only person I'm seeing.
Okay.
Jeremy, am I still on the wire here?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Okay, Ray, please be assured, Save Lake Pocatapog Coalition is not trying to delay this thing any longer. We absolutely have to. We want to make sure that we want to make sure we move this thing forward as fast as we possibly can, because with more people coming in the town, with the pandemic and people relocating and all the work that's being done around the area, we are more than concerned that we want to make sure that this thing gets in place so that it can become effective beginning of the year. I do not have the most recent copy of this document that I'm aware of. If Jeremy can send that to me, I'll be more than happy to review it, look back at my notes from what we discussed way back when. If and what Jeremy tells me is true, which I believe it is, there has been no changes to it, that's fine. Last I knew, we were in complete support of the last version of the document. I just want to make sure, I haven't looked at it in a number of months. I want to make sure that it's what we talked about is still in place. And again, we are not trying to slow this thing down. We want to speed it along. So let me have a copy of it, Jeremy, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I can send it to you. It's also up on the website.
Okay.
Yeah, this is on the town website already. And yes, Jeremy.
The sooner we get this thing in place, Ray, the happier we're going to be.
Okay, I'm not saying that you're trying to delay this intentionally or with malice. So I just want to get it going.
Nope, that was not I didn't mean to imply that at all. We were in all of this thing together. We just want to make sure we get moving as fast as we can in this thing, because you guys have done a lot of good work on this thing, and there's been a lot of people that had some good input. So we want to make sure we hit 2021 running on the ground running to maintain the success we've had so far this year.
Okay, what I would like to do is have a motion to continue the updates, the public hearing portion of the updates to section 3.1 Lake Pocatapog Protection Zone to our next regularly scheduled meeting of November 4th, 2020. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
I have a motion on the floor from Kevin. Do I have a second?
Second, Roland.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion on the floor and second to continue the public hearing. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So moved. I would like to have a motion to continue the continue the application for updates to section 3.1 Lake Pocatapog Protection Zone to our next regularly scheduled meeting on November 4th, 2020. Do I have that motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman, Kevin.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second, Roland.
I have a motion on the floor and second to continue the updates to section 3.1 Lake Pocatapog Protection Zone to our next regularly scheduled meeting of November 4th, 2020. Comments or discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any objections, any abstentions? So moved. New business, 6A, application PZC 20-021, Loco Paro Restaurant, 191 East High Street for a site plan modification to build a 731 square foot addition, map 09A, block 76, lot 11A. We have, we've discussed this at some length in preliminary discussions. It's now before us. And is the applicant here?
Yes.
Good evening. Could you please identify yourself and the address of the restaurant for the record?
Yes. Anastasios Papagiannopoulos, 191 East High Street, East Hampton, Connecticut 06424.
Can you briefly describe what you're doing?
Yes, we're looking to put an addition that we update the bathrooms on the downstairs on a banquet room and give us the availability to open little our kitchen.
Thank you. We discussed this at some length last month, and I think the change from last month, taking a look at the plans, is that this is straight up. I think, Kevin, you were saying you had mentioned something along that line?
Came smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's a no-brainer. It would be beneficial to the business. It would be beneficial to people in town. We're always looking for good quality restaurants in town, and it's not really impeding on anybody else's property. It's just kind of rounding off the building, as far as I understand it, and it's making it more user-friendly for the employees of the establishment.
Okay, Jeremy, I'm going to tick down the questions. Does this increase lot coverage?
It does not.
Does it impact the parking?
It does not.
Okay, does it meet our regulations?
It does.
Okay. Comments or questions from the remainder of the commission? Anybody? Okay, with that, I would like to entertain a motion to approve application PZC 20-021, Loco Paro Restaurant, 191 East High Street for a site plan modification to build a 731 square foot addition, map 09A, block 76, lot 11A. For the following reasons. Kevin, could you repeat that?
Yeah. I don't know. Do we have it in the minutes? Basically, it doesn't impede on other people's property. It is.
It's consistent with our regulations.
Yeah, it's consistent with our regulations. It's a more user-friendly atmosphere for everybody.
It's an improvement to the property and helpful for commercial development.
Yes, and there's no safety issues that I'm aware of with the property. And
Following conditions.
Concerned
that any construction is the town staff is notified prior to any construction or start of construction, and that all of the building permits are secured prior to the start of construction.
Changes,
I'll
yeah.
second that. Roy, I'll
Okay.
second it.
Do you want to make that motion, Kevin?
Sure.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor from Kevin, seconded by Roy, to approve the application PZC 20-021, Loco Paro Restaurant, 191 East High Street, for site plan modification to build a 731 square foot addition, map 09A, block 76, lot 11A. Any comments or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you, Tassos. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, application PZC 20-022, East Hampton Rotary Club Foundation, 5 Daly Road, for a special permit for parks, playgrounds, and public recreation, section 4.4.D, point 1, point D, map 33, block 87, lot 3. Okay, with this, we are going to need to move this to a public hearing. Tonight, what I would like to do is hear from the applicant basically what they would like to do. For the public hearing, I am a member of Rotary, so I'm going to recuse myself for the public hearing portion. But just to keep this meeting moving along, I would like to just stay with that. If the rest of the commission is all right with this, I would like to stay just to hear and move along the presentation of what we are going to be hearing if we are going to go forward with a public hearing at our next scheduled meeting.
Yeah, Ray, just for the record, I am also a member of Rotary and I will be recusing myself from that public discussion as well.
Okay, I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about us sitting right now. We can recuse ourselves now. Then I think either actually Jim Sennett or Roland would take over chairman. Any commission feel one way or another?
I have no problem with you sitting in on this part of the procedure.
I'm not concerned either.
I just wanted to comment that, I don't know, Jeremy, if you, did you clarify your comments on your report? You said recommendations to continue the application. Did you mean set the public hearing or did you mean continue the application?
You know, I kind of wanted to see how the commission felt about it. There were some outstanding things that I wanted to get some clarification on. That memo was from last week. I've gotten some clarification on certain things, so I think it's okay to go ahead and set the public hearing on this one if the commission so chooses.
Okay.
A motion that we continue the public, open a public hearing on November 4th.
Okay, before that,
application.
before anybody seconds that, I agree with you, Roy, but what I would like to do is have just a brief overview of what we're going to hear so we can hopefully ask if there's anything else that we would like to see at the public hearing.
I'll withdraw the motion.
You don't have to, it's not seconded, so we can just keep going.
We hear from Steve Greco. I think he's here to represent the foundation.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm Steve Greco. I'm the current chairman of the East Hampton Rotary Club Foundation and past president of the East Hampton Rotary Club. And we have received this land as a donation with some deed restrictions that we keep the property forever reserved, preserved, and maintained for recreational and/or park purposes. So we are requesting a special permit under section 4.4 subsection D1D. Right now, we don't really have a lot of concrete plans, but we would like to have the Rotary Club have the ability to meet on this property. We meet every Wednesday right now at Local Pero, and everyone enjoys that. But from time to time for fellowship, we'd like to be able to meet when the weather's nice on this piece of property. We also anticipate developing plans for low impact recreation that might include hiking trails or dog walking, or I have heard some talk about maybe an Eagle Scout doing a small project on the property. But that's all we have really talked about at this point.
Okay, Jeremy, do you have anything else that the applicant should include or at this particular point, or you'll just do that offline?
Yeah, we'll do that offline. The one thing I will say is that with regards to any kind of future development, those plans would need to come back in front of the commission in terms of, you know, playground structures or any type of changes to the property itself. So I'll just add that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We agree.
Okay.
Excuse
Roy,
me.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, Jeremy, when those plans come back, would that be a site plan approval or would we have to modify the special permit?
It would kind of depend on what those plans are at the time. So I don't want to talk about speculation, but you know, depending on what their plans are going forward, we have to determine what would be needed in terms of an application.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor from Roy, and I think your motion was to move this to a public hearing at our next regularly scheduled meeting, November 4th, 2020. Is that correct? Roy?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to move this to a public hearing at our next regularly scheduled meeting of November 4th, 2020. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Who was that?
Jim.
Me, I second it.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor and seconded. Any comments or discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any objections, any abstentions? Hearing none, so moved. See you, I won't see you, but see you next month, Steve. Application, this is 6C. Application PZC 20-023, JCG Properties LLC, 9 Middle Haddam Road for a zone change from R2 to commercial for approximately 5 acres to operate a veterinary clinic, map 01C, block 9, lot 5. I see the applicants are here. Could you identify yourselves for the records, please?
I am John Gustafson, and
I'm Christine Gustafson.
Could you speak up a little bit, please?
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear us?
Or just move a little closer to your mic.
I am John Gustafson.
And Christine Gustafson.
No?
Can you hear us?
Yes, you're good.
Okay.
Do you want us to?
Do you want us to explain stuff?
If you could briefly explain what you are trying to do and where the property, first tell us where the property is, and then briefly explain what you're trying to do here.
Yeah, so it is 9 Middle Haddam Road, which is Route 151. We are currently own the Portland Veterinary Hospital, and we are looking to move our practice to that property. It is currently a 17-acre property, and we are looking to subdivide it, take the 5 acres on the 151 portion of it, and make that the hospital, and we would not own the other portion that abuts Oak Dockham Road. We are actually live in Cobalt. We've been here for the last 13 years, and so we're part of the town. And we currently own the Portland Veterinary Hospital. We've owned it for 5 years. We've worked in this area for the last 18 years, and we'd like to just have that more that small town vet feeling and continue to serve our clients.
Okay, Jeremy, can you give us just a brief view of what the adjacent properties are, zone-wise?
Sure, I can. So this is a 500-foot radius map. So again, this is the large parcel, but they're only talking about 5 acres on the Middle Haddam Road side. To the south is R2, to the north is R2, to the northeast is the commercial zone. So directly, well, it's an abutting property is the post office and Sleepy Rooster Cafe and flea market property. And then to the east of that is the pizza place. Directly across the street, this is a large lot that the town owns. To the south, this is a conservation parcel. These are residential. Just down the street is the Cobalt Healthcare, Cobalt Lodge Healthcare. And then, of course, down Oakham Dock Road, as you well know, 49 is approved for a banquet facility. So it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of uses, with some commercial to the north and east, commercial that's zoned residential to the south, and then, of course, commercial south and west down Oakham Dock.
Property across the street, that was slated, I think, for the water system in the future. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was the reason it was purchased, was to house the pump station and cleaning station and all that for the wells that are down on Oakham Dock.
Thank you.
Is
What
this
are the
the
properties
historic district or?
It is not in the historic district. The historic district starts just south, I think, actually just at the southern border of this property.
What's the properties that are to the north border, the north property line?
So say that question again for me, Roy.
Those properties on the north, right there, where you just.
Yep.
Yeah, what are those? What's that properties?
Yeah, I'm going to zoom in. They're zoned residential. We got this is it's a residential zone, but it is a kind of a storage garage that's been there. There's no residents on the property. This is residential, residential, residential. This parcel here directly to the north is residential, but the one on the corner is the doll shop that's at the traffic light. So that's a commercial use.
This is Angela's question for the applicant. Why 5 acres
versus the whole
versus whatever,
Well,
something smaller?
is a large frontage on that, and we wanted to take the entire frontage. We'd also like to make it so that it is not hopefully impinging on any of the current residents. You know, we'd like to be able to conserve the area around it, leave the trees, leave the, you know, have area so that it's not developed.
So does that mean that the property will have to be subdivided?
Correct.
the current property, right?
And the wetlands are in the back, so I don't know. How much more of the property could you possibly split it? I mean, so it's 5.29 acres. How far back could you potentially go with that split if you wanted to?
We weren't planning on more. I don't know what you mean.
I don't know. I mean, it was the split. I mean, it's somewhat.
Yeah, we just basically wanted that frontage, so that we were kind of taking that whole side. And so it wasn't necessarily, we didn't want to go back to the wetlands. I don't know. Do you want us to take more, or are you looking for us to take less?
Well, I was just wondering, you know, I mean, say that this expands, you know, if you wanted to expand, do you have enough room to expand if you wanted to down the road, if it ever went that route?
Yeah,
If it ever got approved or.
It's just the two of us. We're the only two vets, and with both veterinarians there. And so we're not looking to, you know, take over the area. We just want to run our practice and keep it kind of small. We don't want to be we're not planning on like anything futuristic after that. You know, it's going to be a day practice, not 24-hour. We don't want any of those things as well. So,
Jeremy, logistically, how does this work? We can't change the zone while it's still a single piece of property.
You can. And we talked about that. I talked about that a number of times with the applicant and their surveyor as well. You know, the zone line, you as the commission set the location of the zone line. So that's why you have a map in front of you that says proposed new zone line. Subdivision requires substantial engineering, and there's a cost to that, of course. And so the most economical way to do this was to get the zone changed first, because if the commission says, you know what, we don't want it commercial, then the applicants are going to walk away from the property, and there's no point in having them go through the expense of the subdivision. So the idea would be that the zone line would follow that line that's on the screen there, and then the subdivision would also follow that line if the zone change is approved.
Thank you.
Landlock issues?
Say that again, Kevin?
Any landlock issues?
No, the rear parcel, the 12.21 acres would still have more than the required frontage along Oakham Dock Road, because there's, of course, the residential piece here that was cut out some number of years ago, but there's several hundred other feet of frontage along Oakham Dock Road, so no landlock issues.
and I say that our plan is there that the 5 acres has the current house on it, which is not really usable, but we plan on taking that house and make that house as the hospital, adding on to it, of course, but that would be basically renovating that and making it more, taking the colonial look and using that. So even though it's not in the historical district, we still want it to look like New England. So,
Like it was there all along?
correct. We want to use the original house. It probably would be, you know, cost effective to remove it, but I would prefer to renovate it and make it look like it's supposed to be there, like it was.
And if I'm not mistaken, that was another reason for taking the whole frontage along Middle Haddam Road, because that house more or less sits kind of in the middle of it, and it's up a slope, so you'll need a bit of an angled driveway and some other things to get in there to get access.
Right.
Any other questions from the commission? Hearing none, what I would like is a motion to move the application PZC-20-023 JCG Properties LLC 9 Middle Haddam Road for a zone change from R2 to commercial for approximately 5 acres to operate a veterinary clinic, map 01C Block 9, Lot 5 to a public hearing at our next regularly scheduled meeting of November 4th, 2020. Do I have that motion?
I'll move, Mr. Chairman. Kevin.
Roy will second it.
I have
I'll
a second
second
by
it, Roy.
Roy. Comments or discussions on this? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? So moved. See you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can just interrupt really quickly, I do have a one hand raised in the public, but I'd like to just state that this is not a public hearing at this time. This will be held next month. The chairman has indicated that he will do a brief public comment session at the end of the agenda. So I'm going to lower the hand that's raised. And when we get to that public comment, you can go ahead and raise your hand again if there's something you'd like to say. That's it.
Thank you. Old business, update of the sign regulations to include the POR zone, POR zone sign standards, and the discussion of the home-based occupations. I am inclined, I don't know what the rest of the commission thinks, but I am inclined to continue that to our next regularly scheduled meeting. Hopefully we'll be able to actually meet in person and a combination hybrid, in person and Zoom, and discuss that at some length. Is that okay with the rest of the commission?
Good with me, Ray. Kevin.
Agree, Roy.
Roland,
Okay.
agreed.
I'm going to take also Jeremy's suggestion of continuing the updates to the official East Hampton zoning map until we are finished with Atlantis marketing and also the JCG properties. Is that all right with the rest of the commission?
Sounds good to me, Ray. Kevin.
Okay, Ray. Roland.
Okay, planners report. If you could, Jeremy, briefly.
Yep. You have my report in writing. I'll let it sit there on its own for you to read through. It's also on the website for any of the public that's interested in what I have to say. The only thing I will say is that in regards to the 250-foot monopole that's being proposed off of Lakeview Street, it does appear that there is an impending. So that was a replacement for the pole that's at the top of Baker Hill behind the condos. That property and that pole is on property that's owned by Paul's and Sandy's. It seems imminent that there will be an agreement between Paul's and Sandy's and Crown Castle for leaving that pole in place. As such, the town council has sent a letter to the siting council to ask the applicant to remove the application to the siting council since the, in the case that agreement is signed. So I do want to let you know that it's sort of a false alarm in some ways. Crown Castle had to move forward with a backup plan, but it seems like it will not be needed. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay. The other rest of it is on the email that has been given to us. It's also on the town website. And what I'd like to do is open up to the public now. There was a hand raised. Jeremy, could you identify that person if they're still here?
There was. So I've got one hand raised right now. Jen, I'm going to open her mic. Go ahead, Jen.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes,
Okay.
if you could identify yourself for the record again.
Yep, it's Jennifer Mikulski, 100 Daily Road. And I have more of a question, and I apologize if that's not appropriate.
No, go ahead. That's why we're doing this.
Okay, it's in preparation for the public hearing on the East Hampton Rotary Club application PZC 22 rather. Can we prepare written statements and comments ahead of time for review? I'm just wanting to be prepared for the process.
We would, as a commission, the building department would really appreciate it. And please do that and do it as soon as you can, please.
Yep.
Okay.
I've got a number of them, Jen, and I started a file with all of those. So go ahead and you can just send it to me. You can email it to me. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there an appropriate title? Do you need to put certain verbiage in these documents, like please put in public record or?
Nope. Anything you send to me will be put into the file. You can title, put in the subject line 45 Daily Road or Rotary Club application. That'll be fine. I'll know what it's for and
Okay.
I'll put it in the file.
Perfect. I appreciate your time, and that's really all I needed to know. Thank you.
Please include your name and your address. Anonymous stuff doesn't help us.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And I had one more, I think it was, you know what? That person has signed off. So I think we're good.
Okay, with that, we already did set the public hearings, which is item number 9. I think we're up to item number 10. Anybody want to do that? Nobody wants to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor, seconded by Roland. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will see you next month. Any comments or questions? Obviously, call myself and also Jeremy. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
All right.